I'll just do a little bit of a talk here. I think it stands to reason that the Ohio vote on the Measure 1, which would have required a supermajority of 60% instead of a simple 50% plus one vote to approve constitutional amendments, was an embarrassment to the anti-abortion nut jobs. And, you know, there was a surprisingly high turnout for not just an off-year election, but kind of a hidden election. It was a special election, not really a hidden election. And still, the voters from 57 to 43% told the anti-abortion nutters and the GOP to go to hell. We're going to keep our right to vote. And so, also the courts in Ohio gave the go-ahead to the abortion measure that's on the ballot in November, and I fully expect that to pass by a similar margin. Some observers have said, well, maybe it'll be closer, but you know, we're not that divided in this country over abortion, and it never has been. It never has been, it never will be, because people do realize that women are human, and they are not things to bear babies, and that's all they're good for, sexual access and bearing babies, and that pregnancy should never be punishment for women having sex. I mean, it's just ridiculous. It's not even a subject for debate anymore. So Politico also had this, that I'm not going to cry tears over the anti-abortion movement, because they've always been fringe. They always will be fringe. They have ideas, and I just mentioned about women being things for men to use, and they want to keep patriarchy in charge. They want men in charge of women. Women are men's property to do whatever the hell they want. And women are just things to screw and bear babies and be homemakers. I mean, just junk. 1950s junk. And I despise any notion of going back to that era, because there was nothing good about it in that way. There wasn't. There was other things that were good, like the music. I've talked about it, some of the television shows, that stuff. But this shit of the nuclear family of 1950s style just sucked. Totally sucked. And it was the only reason it was peddled so much was to kick women out of the labor force, use it as an excuse to throw women out. And that's why so many were out of the labor force during the 50s. It wasn't because they chose it. It was because they were kicked out to make room for the men who were fighting overseas in World War II. And, you know, I just don't feel sorry for these nutters, because what they ought to do is just give it up. But they've got the USC in their pocket. They thought they could pull their little shit. And when the USSC said, oh, just leave it to the states, and so the anti-abortion nutters thought, oh boy, we're going to really make a dent. But then they found out the voters felt a hell of a lot different about this issue than they did. But a lot of states don't have direct voting on ballot measures and have to rely on the legislatures. So that means voters better pay close attention as to who they vote for in these elections. But it's massively unpopular. That's why they lost. They will never ever lose again. They will never, because they never had it to begin with. They're never going to get public support for this shit. And that's why they're trying all this underhanded crap. And judge shopping in the courts, buying off the courts, having their little Federalist Society hacks on the High Court and various other courts that already have predetermined what an issue is going to be, and then just present an utterly bogus case in front of them so they can rule however the hell Leonard Leo and company want. So they're going to have messier. There is no compromise to be had. Women are not things to fucking bear babies, and they don't have to give you a reason as to why they want an abortion, why they get abortions. It's not up to you to know why. So stay the fuck out of their business. It's not hard. It's not hard, but you know, it's that mentality that women are inferiors is really hard to, and the whole masculine, feminine crap, and all that other garbage, the sex role garbage, it's hard to get rid of that. It's really hard to erase that. And it'll be long after I've pushed up daisies that it'll change if the planet is still around then. And anyway, yeah, that fire in Hawaii, that was terrible. And Hawaii is the last place on earth you would think would have wildfires. And the last I heard, it was what, 60 some deaths and 1,500 people missing. I don't know. It's really gone up. By the hour, it's gone up. And then I don't want to forget our friend. I talked about this cheat in a previous video, Brooklyn Ross. It's probably Ross Brooklyn. But he dropped out of the Governor's Cup. And he claimed safety. This is the women's thing, right? Tennis tournament. Citing safety concerns. Sure, safety concerns. He was probably afraid of embarrassment by protesters, or that women have decided they're not going to compete with him. And with tennis, you can't very well do it by yourself. I mean, you could have a handball demonstration or whatever, but go play by yourself. But if nobody's going to compete with you, you can't do tennis. But, you know, we thought, people my age and older, thought this shit was done with that Richard Raskin crap back in the 70s. Renee Richards, that he called himself. And everybody was up in arms about it. They were just absolutely furious that guy wanted to compete against women. And that, he pretty much was run out of town on a rail on that. But now they're more bold. These cheaters are a lot more bold now. But and they need to quit calling this guy a her, because it's a man. But he thought he was owed. He thought he was entitled to play. But I'd like to know what really it was. His ego couldn't take it. After Fulkrod's resignation, Ross 27 said he would not be competing, telling Cowboy State Daily he did not want his presence to be the main focus or protests to ruin the event, which took place. Okay, it's already been done a few days ago. It just became more and more apparent that the environment may not have been a typical tennis tournament, with things getting out of control and people's safety at risk, including my own. Ah, yeah, right. No, you're chicken shit. You're absolutely chicken shit. You can't stand the heat. You decided you were going to get out of the kitchen. So, you know, no sympathy for you. If you want to compete with the dudes. But of course, you're not good enough to compete with them. Anyway, there was also this very long article about this think tank called Claremont Institute. And we're really, you know, the billionaires are not going to give up. Just like the anti-abortion nutters aren't going to give up, the billionaires aren't going to give up, because they want an aristocracy in this country. And so they're polluting the courts with the Federalist Society, and they're trying to pollute public discourse by outfits like the Claremont Institute, which has been around for 50-some years. But anyway, I'll just throw that in there as kind of, I was in the middle of reading this damn thing, so I thought I'll throw it in. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of the end of this week for discussion. I was just glad old Brooklyn got the Bronx cheer, because that's what he was afraid of. He was afraid of being run out of town on a rail. Anyway, and I hope that's the end of him. It won't be. But anyway, that's it.